Okay, hello and welcome to our class this evening. Today is just a quick bread and butter cooking class, just to share some tips around the real basics, getting back to the basics in your Thermomix. And to get started, I wanted to show you the butter first, and then we'll go on to the bread. If anyone has questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll answer them as we go. At the end, when I finish recording, I'll stop recording and then you can come off mute and we can talk, and you can ask other questions that we can go through, and I can answer anything else about the Thermomix as well. And yeah, that's fine, Jen. Thanks for that. I will just go straight into it. So I'm just pulling up the butter recipe on the screen, but you can do this manually in any model of Thermomix, as I've been doing for many years. There's only one ingredient in butter, and that is cream. So the first step is to insert your butterfly whisk, and I want to show you how to do that in case anyone isn't sure. If you put it to the left of the highest blade and then give it a very small anti-clockwise twist, it locks in place really well. So we've inserted our butterfly, and then we're putting in our cream. So the thing with your cream is, the closer to the expiry date, the quicker it's going to whip and turn into butter. And I wasn't organized, and I only just got this cream yesterday, and I had to get 2 little ones because that's all Aldi had. And that's okay, it's going to work, but it just might take a bit longer to whip because it's fresher. And that's the thing about whipping cream. So if you're wanting to whip cream without turning it into butter, you can just follow the first step of this recipe and then watch very carefully, because you don't want it to turn into butter. It's one of those ones where you can't really follow a set formulated time, even though there is a recipe on Cookidoo that has a time. It's kind of one of those things where it's more of a look and see. So while I'm whipping cream that I want to just be cream, I'll let it whip for about 20 seconds with the MC on, and then I'll take off that MC and I'll look in and watch until it's the texture I want it to be. So that's just my tip for whipping cream. As far as butter goes, we want to just whip it for a really long time until it separates, and you'll see the Thermomix shaking a bit, and you'll definitely hear a change. So I've put in the cream, I put on my MC, and I'm going to turn to speed 4. And yeah, so now I just need to wait and let that separation happen. And so what's going to happen is the buttermilk is going to separate out from the butter. So you've got your 2 separate ingredients, and the buttermilk's really good to use in like cutlets or scones or just anything you're cooking with that normally asks for milk. You can use the buttermilk for that too. So the other thing you can do in your Thermomix, which I'm not showing you today, but it's a cool recipe that I'll include in the email tomorrow when I send out. I'm going to send out an email tomorrow with the recording and the links to the recipes, and I'll put this recipe in it too, because I think it's very cool. It's to make cream out of milk and butter. So if ever you're out of cream and you need cream, you can just use milk and butter. So it's like you're putting it back together again. What we're doing today is separating the milk and butter out from the cream, but there's a reverse recipe to put those 2 back together again, which I think is awesome. Okay, I've done this for 1 minute, and I want to show you what we have here. Just some nice whipped cream. So not good enough for today. We're going to go back, and the recipe did say on that screen, but I wanted to show you. The recipe did say turn to speed 4 and prolong by up to 2 minutes if necessary until it's separated. So we do need it to keep going as predicted, since the cream is very fresh, only bought yesterday. If you go to your supermarket and you find cream reduced, often the pure cream cardboard cartons are reduced. That's perfect for making butter, because that means it's very close to its expiry date. It's cheaper for you, and it's going to turn into butter a lot quicker. So if you ever see that, grab it, it's gold. And you can put it in the freezer if you're not ready to make anything out of it just yet, or just go ahead and straight away make the butter out of it. So yes, oh, I can hear it it's starting to separate a bit now. And I don't know if you can see it, but my Thermomix is shaking a bit. And especially if I put my hand on it, it's vibrating. It's getting very loud. So have a look. Yeah, that looks very good. I could have kept going in another few seconds if I wanted to. You know what? I will go another. I'll show you. So that was 1 more minute. I do just want to go a few more seconds. I'm showing you in steps just so you can see what it looks like along the way, because this is one of those troubleshooting things people have where they're not sure if they've gone far enough yet. Okay, now can you see the Thermomix shaking? And I don't know if you can hear it. I've got my AirPods on. I don't know if you can hear it, but it was like zhoot, 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 zhoot. It's like a really interesting noise that's definitely different to the normal whipping of cream noise. Yeah, and I know the microphone sounds a bit weird when there's background noise on Zoom, but anyway, that doesn't matter. So we've got our separated out here, and I'll show you properly when I take out the butterfly whisk. So don't need the whisk, and at the moment we will use that again. So 2 ways of straining. Some people would put this in a bowl and tip it through. I actually do a different way where I like to put my simmer basket in and strain it out into a jug with my thumb on this bit here, just holding that in place. So that holds the simmer basket in place. The other thing you can do is use your spatula. I'll just show you. Some people put their spatula in here to hold the simmer basket in place. Either way, whatever works for you. I've been using my thumb for years, so it just works for me. But hopefully you can see all that buttermilk coming out. It's beautiful. That's an awesome ingredient that you can use in your baking. Once you think you've got a fair bit of it out, then I can show you what I've got without it tipping all over my laptop. So there's the butter, and I'm just going to use my spatula to kind of squeeze it, just pressing down on it. And then I know I can get more of the milk coming out. And the more you squeeze, the more will come out. Now that we've taken the milk out of the butter, or we haven't quite yet, but once you've taken the milk out of the butter, the expiry date on it lasts a lot longer, because basically it's the milk portion of that cream that was going to expire. So now this buttermilk needs to be used within a day or 2 or 3 tops. But the butter can go on for a few weeks because we've taken that milk out. I'm just still pressing it. This is one of those recipes that isn't an instant. The Thermomix does everything. This one involves a little bit of manual help just to squeeze out the rest of that milk. So I actually quite like this. Kind of fun to play with. I'm just pressing it with my spatula and getting more milk out every time I do it. And you could, Ken's asked in the chat, could you put it in cheesecloth to get more of the buttermilk out? Yeah, absolutely. If you had time, you could just leave this to drain. And it depends how much you care, because it depends how much you care about the buttermilk itself. Because in the next step, we're going to wash this butter, and any milk left in it is going to be washed out. But it's that I'm trying to squeeze out all the buttermilk. Okay, that'll do though. I've done quite a good job. And so I'll show you the butter we have there now, looking nice. So the next step, and look how much buttermilk we got, that 300 mils. That's awesome. The next step is to wash that butter. So we're going to put in some chilled water. It's approximately 500 grams of chilled water, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we're going to be tipping this out, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But that can go in. Yeah, that looks good. And so now we put on the lid and we're going to mix that together. Don't worry, the water won't mix in with the butter. It's just washing it. And some people who want the butter to be so extremely pure will tip this out and wash it again with another batch of water. But I'm going to be using this butter really fast and I don't need to worry about that. So I can try and show you without tipping it everywhere. That's what we've got. And I will strain that again. So again, using my simmer basket, tipping out. Now this is just kind of a dirty water that's half butter, half milk, half water, mainly water. But you can see it's quite cloudy. And then what we have left in here is the butter. So what we can do now, some people still use that, but I'm happy just to tip that out. It's mainly just water. I don't know what I would use it for. So yeah, so basically I can just get this butter out now. Some people will also add salt at this point, or you could add flavors. So you could add honey and cinnamon or tarragon or chili or just whatever flavor you want your butter to be. I'm just going to keep it as pure butter. But now would be the time to add whatever flavor. And you could whip it up to be a nice whipped butter. And so here we go. Oh, you can't really see that. Sorry. We've got our butter, and so you can shape it if you wanted to shape it into a rectangle or a log or whatever you wanted to shape it in. There's still a little bit of liquid in there that you could squeeze out. Not too much. But as you're shaping it, that will all come out. And I actually want to weigh it and show you how much butter we got out of that. Yeah, that looks nice, like a nice big slab of butter. And with our 300 mils of buttermilk, I'm assuming it'll be around a similar weight. I'll just get a little bowl to put on my scales. Oh, if you weren't sure what to do, I love how sometimes the recipes have a little video in it. It's like showing you how to roll the butter into a log using Glad wrap to just shape it easily and nicely. I can stop that now. I'm not going to bother about it. But yeah, and then use as needed. So I'm going to just weigh this butter so I can show you how much we've made. About 250, so it's 246 grams. So pretty awesome. We've made 250 grams of butter and 300 mils of buttermilk, and it's only been a few minutes, and don't you just feel so satisfied when you're making something homemade from scratch like our grandmas used to do. They spent all day doing it, and I'm just washing my hands. They spent all day doing it, and we just let the Thermomix do most of the work. So pretty awesome. Yeah, let me know if you have any other butter questions, but otherwise we'll go straight on to the bread. And let me just check if Jen, okay, just before I go on to the bread, sorry, this is just a little by the way that really only relates to Jen Thompson and her guests. So if you are here as a guest of Jen Thompson, it would be really awesome if you could click the link that I'm going to put in the chat. And Jen, you need to do it too. And just show that you have attended tonight, because Jen Thompson is going to be eligible for a host reward tonight because she invited guests to join one of our demos. So pretty cool. So thank you for all coming. But so for Jen and her guests, I've just put a really long, ugly looking link in the chat. If you can all do that sometime today before midnight, that would be awesome. And let me know if there's any stresses about that. And back to the butter, yes, Chantel, better than paying $6 for a block of butter, especially if you find cream reduced in the supermarket, as it often is. So yeah, really good point. saving that money because butter has been going up. Crazy. Okay, so now I want to show you some bread, and due to the nature of bread needing to rise, this is here's one I made earlier. So I'm going to be showing a video, if I can find it, of me making bread just earlier today, just so I could cut out all the waiting time in between. So I'll be sharing that now, and still keep putting questions in the chat, and I just need to minimize this. Sorry, it's just a few little admin things when you're sharing videos. Okay, I will press play now. Hey, today I wanted to show you how to make a basic bread. It's a recipe I've been doing for many years, and it's variable to suit your tastes and your needs. So it's called basic bread. I'm just going to get started. So I'll get off. I press start cooking. The first thing it asks me to do is add in some wheat grain. And you can, and the scales come up, so I will just weigh in my grain. It's only 100 grams. If you don't want this to be wholemeal, if you just want it to be completely white bread, skip this step, and you're going to add 100 grams of white flour in later when we're doing the white flour. So I'll remind you then later. But so basically, we're making a wholemeal flour out of these wheat grains, 100 grams worth. You can also use spelt or buckwheat or chickpeas, or it's just whatever grain you want ground up into your bread. You can change that out here when it asks for the wheat grain. So this is just about the noisiest thing you can do in your Thermomix is grinding grains, because they are so hard. And so it tells me to put the lid on and go up to speed 9 for a minute. And Zoom's going to cut out the noise for you, but just trust me, it's loud. I don't care about that. It's being loud because it's being powerful. It's doing something that I can't do by hand. I can't do with anything else. This is grinding grain into a wholemeal flour at 10,300 revs per minute. And it's awesome. So I'll do that. I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so that's just finished now. I'll show you what we have here with our wholemeal flour. So the reason why you'd want to grind your own grains are because a lot of the nutrients that are in grains are lost once they're ground after sometimes a few hours in the case of something like chickpeas, or a few days in the case of our wheat grains and things like that. So there's like proteins, vitamins, antioxidants, all sorts of things that are found in freshly ground grains. So I don't know if you can see, but we've got a nice wholemeal flour here that we've made. If you want it finer, you can do it for 2 minutes. When I'm grinding rice to make rice flour, I do it for 2 minutes because that's when you want that really dust-like powder. But this is good enough for our bread today. So I'll set that aside and we carry on. So basic bread recipe should only really be about 5 ingredients, and one of them is water. My spatula is in there, so now I need to tear my scales. So that's something to always know. If you had the lid on or just been touching it, don't ever touch your machine while you're tearing the scales. So now I need to press this tear reset button, putting in some water. It doesn't matter what temperature this water is. So just out of the tap is fine, because we are going to heat it up. And okay, that's good. So just some water, and we're going to put in the yeast. So it's a sachet. If you buy the sachet boxes, that's good, or just 2 teaspoons of this one. So I'm using dried yeast. I have tried using fresh yeast once. It did not make a difference. I don't see why I need to bother when this is really good. And I keep this in the freezer because then it stays active and fresh. So there's your yeast. We are going to activate that yeast in the water on 2 minutes for 2 minutes, 37 degrees, speed 1. So that's just going to help rise the dough really nicely because it's going to be at the optimal temperature. That's your body temperature. It's the fermenting temperature. It's just perfect for activating that yeast. So our dough is going to be the perfect temperature for rising really nicely. So that's why we're heating that up now. If you're following another recipe that doesn't have this step in it, and you want to speed up the process of the rising or just make it better, what you can do when you're in the middle of a recipe, I'll just stop it. When you're in the middle of a recipe, you can just press this home button and then you're home. So you could have come here and manually set that time for 2 minutes, 37 degrees, speed 1. And then when you're ready to go back into the recipe, just stop that, press your bookmark, and you're back to where you left off. So that's just something I sometimes do when I'm in recipes and I want to change it around. I just want to get out of it, do what I want to do on the home page, and then go back to where I was bookmarked. Now, the other thing you can do at this point while your yeast is activating is multitask and look ahead. So if I press these 3 dots, I can go to the recipe detail and scroll ahead and see I need to go get my oil, my white flour, my salt, and the optional seeds out of the pantry. So I've got 2 minutes now to go do that while that water is activating the yeast. So that is finished. So now it is asking me to add all the other ingredients. So 20 grams of olive oil, and the scales in the TM6 go at 1 gram increments. So you can drizzle things in or put in tiny amounts and it will detect it. So it's really nice not to have to use measure cups and be able to rely on those scales. And we are putting in our white flour. So now this is baker's flour. So it's quite different to, I'm just using it straight out of my big tub. You can see I buy a lot of things in bulk. It's different to plain flour that you buy to make cakes and biscuits and muffins. This has extra protein and a bit more gluten to give it just a nice stronger bread dough, and it gives it a good light touch. You will notice a difference if you have them side by side, but if all you've got is plain flour and you want to make bread, still do it. Like, give it a go and use the flour that you've got because it's still going to work. But if you had them side by side, you'd see a difference of, oh, that's why people use baker's flour for their breads and pizza doughs and focaccias and things like that. So the flour is in. We want a teaspoon of salt. I just I get the rock salt and mill it myself so that I've got additive-free cooking salt, no anti-caking agents or anything like that. And I just do it in this, like about this much at a time, just 10 seconds, speed 10. And it makes this beautiful cooking salt that you can have ready to go. I know some people just stand there going like this, but to get a whole teaspoon's worth is actually quite a bit. So have some ready milled so that you can just add it in whenever recipes ask for salt. Now it says to add the reserved wheat flour. If you were just wanting to do white flour, remember back when we added the white flour, we could have added 100 grams, or now you can pull up the scales by pressing those 3 dots, press the scales, and add in another 100 grams of white flour, like the baker's flour. In this case, I want to add my reserved wheat flour. The other thing about that is if you want your bread to be more wholemeal, so this is only a 20% wholemeal ratio. If you wanted it to be more, here's where you, earlier you could have just ground more grains and you just change the ratio of wholemeal to white so that your total is 500 grams of flour. You can decide that ratio yourself. But see how you go. If your family's used to white bread, you can introduce the wholemeal slowly. So maybe you do start with 50 grams of wholemeal and just build it up until you're at a level that you're happy with. So the other thing I always add that is a bit different to the recipe, this is not in the recipe, but this is some apple cider vinegar. And the reason I add this in, I'm going to pull up the scales, is because it's like a natural bread improver. And I only want 20 grams, or about a tablespoon. We don't want the dough to be too sticky, but this is, yeah, as I said, a natural bread improver just to help better texture, help the life of it, and it's a bit healthier for you too, apple cider vinegar. Now the seeds is the other thing I add in. The recipe says to put some on the top, which will look nice, but I want to incorporate it into my bread. So I've got some chia seeds and sunflower seeds. So we've got some extra omega-3, we've got some extra protein, vitamins, things like that. Extra goodness, totally optional, leave it out if you just want the normal bread. And now we are combining the ingredients for 6 seconds. And we will press the dough mode. So 2 minutes of kneading dough in the Thermomix is about 20 minutes of hand punching. So it's pretty strong, pretty powerful. And it goes in one direction for a few spins and then it turns and goes the other way. And basically what it's doing in there is just turning the dough over while it goes. While that's happening, I'll get my mat ready. So this mat is a silicone bread mat, and on the inside it's got some fiberglass properties that will trap in the heat. Remember I was talking earlier about the rising temperature of the dough. So this dough is going to rise nicely in this mat. It'll keep it at that warm temperature. If you didn't have the mat, it is totally fine to put it in a bowl with a tea towel over it. There's different ways people rise their bread, especially something to think about in winter. You can put some water in your Thermomix and have your dough sitting in your varoma and use ferment mode. So if you go to all your modes, there's one called ferment. Fermentation, sorry. So you can have it on that so that your bread is rising in the varoma while there's water cooking below. Some people like to put hot water in their thermo server, insulated serving bowl, and sit the bread dough on top of that. You could also heat up your microwave for a minute empty with nothing inside, just heat it up and then sit your dough in the microwave. Just make sure everyone knows not to go use the microwave while you're doing it, or in your oven on a really low temperature. As long as you don't want to cook the bread any hotter than getting it over at 37 degrees though. So just make sure it is a very low temperature. Some people put it in the car on a hot day. I think it could actually get too hot in there and start to bubble too much. So something to think about. But yeah, next to a hot window is fine. Like over there, sometimes I do. Just find a warm place for your dough, basically, is the message. So this says transfer to the mat, but yeah, we've talked about that. So to get your dough out, if you turn it upside down and twist, you can see this piece here, that's your blade action. So if you twist that, it should all fall out. And as I said, my dough's a little bit stickier because of this cider vinegar that I add in. If you're not adding that in, your dough won't be as sticky as this, but it's still pretty good. So you can see there's a little bit of mess in there. And I'm going to work this into a bowl and wrap it in my mat. And you can get these mats from the mix shop, or it's available as a host reward. So if you don't want to pay for it, talk to your consultant about setting it up as a host reward. But that's our dough. I just want to show you the texture of that. That's nice. Oh, yeah, mine is a bit sticky, which is good. If you ever make the focaccia one day. Like, you won't regret making that focaccia. It's beautiful, but the dough is so sticky. But that's what gives it that nice light touch in the end. And I'm just wrapping it up kind of loosely but firm at the same time. I'm just going to leave mine on my bench because it's a normal kind of room temp warm kind of day in summer. So I'm going to leave that to rise. Now the recipe will say, wrap it up. It says approximately half an hour until it's doubled in size. That time does vary. So today, half an hour is probably going to be enough. But as I said, in winter, sometimes it takes longer, or I need to put it in a warmer place. But don't go too much over the time. It's a really good guide, but more pay attention to the size of it. And if you aren't sure about the size of it, just go with the time. That's okay too. Okay, so we'll be back. Before I actually leave the kitchen, I actually forgot to show you something. Is cleaning out this bowl, because as I mentioned, it's sticky. And so all I'm going to do is put some water in. And if you have an older model Thermomix, you can do this manually by putting it on to speed 10 and reverse and normal directions to clean the bowl. But in this Thermomix, we've got a clean mode. So I'll just show you the clean mode. Hopefully you can see my screen. So I'm going to press home to get out of this recipe, come to my mode and press clean. And there's these different options. I'm going to turn it to dough. So now that's going to give me a self-clean while I go about doing whatever else I need to do in the house. My dough is rising and my Thermomix is cleaning itself. Amazing. Okay, so the bread has been rising for, it's been about 35 minutes now. I went away and got caught doing different things, but I can see that my mat has filled all the crevices. It's a lot more full in here. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but whatever this is going to be good enough. So I'm just opening it up. And at this point, you could shape it into rolls if you wanted to, or a cob or whatever shape you wanted for your bread dough. I'm going to be using this loaf tin today. It's a loaf tin available from the mix shop. And I don't wash it. I just take my bread out each time, and if it needs a clean, I think I've used a paper towel once, but every other time the dough just comes out and it's ready for the next time. So that's what protects the non-stick coating that's on the outside of it. Is not using any chemicals in it. So and it has a lid so that you can make a square loaf. But if you want your loaf to look like it's kind of curving over, or you might want to separate your dough into 3 or 4 balls in there so that it's like waved, the old country style bread, you know, that's waved. I like a square loaf because it just fits nicely in the toaster. But do whatever way you want. So if you don't want it squared, don't put the lid on, and if you do want it squared, do put the lid on. So with my dough, so if you were shaping this out now, you can divide it into rolls or balls or whatever you're wanting to do. Just make sure I'm getting all the bits off this mat. Yeah, good. So, but there's our dough, and all I'm going to do for this one today, sometimes I do 4 balls, so I would just divide this in half and then half again and put it in there so that it does look waved. Today I just want a normal square loaf, so I'm just kind of rolling it into a rough sort of log shape. I want it to be about the size of my tin, so I can put it there and sort of measure it against it. Yeah, that looks about right. You can't see what I'm doing. And kind of make it a little bit even. It actually doesn't matter too much. So I'm just plonking that inside. And we want this to rise again for about 20 minutes to half an hour, depends on different things. But basically, before we put it in the oven, we want it to be sort of almost to the top, because once it goes in the oven, it's going to rise again to fill the top, or it should usually. So you don't want to wait till it's at the very top, because there is a danger of over rising your bread and then it can pop and sink, or just be over risen really. But we want it to just be there, and then it will just continue rising in the oven. So at the moment, I'm just going to put the lid on and leave. I don't need the lid on right now. I actually would normally just sort of cover it with my mat, but I just wanted to show you that when you do put the lid on, if you're using this tin, it looks like this is a handle, in which case you would put it on like that. That's not the case, and I'll show you why. It's because this rim here, when you go to take the lid off, would cut your bread. It'll cut the whole top of it there. So with this, the handle side goes first. So it's like that. So that basically when you go to take it off, it just glides nicely off and you're not cutting your bread. So just thought I'd show you that for those who do have this tin. It's kind of a common first mistake. We'll be back when this has risen a bit. Okay, so this has been rising about 25 more minutes, and I've preheated the oven about 15 minutes ago. I turned my oven on. So as you can see, it's ready for me to put the lid on. Nothing too exciting happening right now. I'm just putting the lid on and popping it in the oven. And it will bake about, oh, how long is it going to bake for? About 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. It really depends on your oven. I'll let you know once it's done, because I'm so bad at setting timers and doing it. I just sort of smell it and look at it. After about 20 minutes or half an hour, I often take off the lid, and because by then it's cooked, it's okay to take off the lid and look at it. The other thing you can do is tip it out a bit and knock on the underside, and it will sound hollow when it's ready. But yeah, it's going in the oven now. Okay, so I've taken the bread out of the oven, so you can see it here, nice and flat on the top, like I said I wanted. And you can see a few corners around the edges. I probably could have let it rise for another 3 to 5 minutes in the tin. I was getting a bit impatient there, but to show you that I know it's done, but like it's pretty much filled the whole tin, so it's okay. How I knew it was done, I just opened the oven and it really does sound hollow. It's the only way to say it. And I'm one of those people who would have been worried the first time when someone told me that tip. Like, I don't know what a watermelon's supposed to sound like when we're knocking on it on the fruit shop. I don't get those types of things. But this, when you tap the bottom, you're like, oh yeah, that's the hollow sound. You can tell. You can also smell it and see it. It's nice and brown and crusty. So yep, I can cut into it to show you. Sorry, I didn't get my knife ready. I've got a proper Thermomix slicing knife that has a guide, but it would take me a second to find it. So I'll just do this now. It's actually easier without that mitt. Just to show you the inside. You really should let it cool down before you cut into it. But this is nice and soft and beautifully light to touch. I don't know if I can show you too well, but yeah, very soft, light, fluffy. It smells amazing, looks good. It's going to taste great. I'm going to have this nice crusty piece warm now with some butter, and yeah, that's baking bread in the Thermomix. And there's so many other bread recipes you can make. This is just, I wanted to do the basic one with a few tips there. Happy Thermomixing. Okay, so there we go with our bread. And if anyone has any questions about bread, please feel free to put it in the chat. I did just also want to share, I've probably lost my screen for it. I did want to share just a really quick Cookidoo tip, because I am still finding long-term Thermomix users who don't know about this, and I just have to share it. It is awesome. Oh no, now I have two open. Sorry, it's because I was mucking around with trying to find the link for tonight last minute. Well, I'm not going to find that. Where is it? I've lost a window. I've lost a window. No. Oh my God. Sorry guys, this is so weird. Let me just open it again. Anyway, I'm going to show you some really quick tips on Cookidoo, because oh yes, and you want to see the cutter. Yeah. Okay, log in. Oh, this is hilarious. I was ready, I promise. Okay, we're back. Share screen again. Okay. So hopefully you can all see this. So this is my Cookidoo screen. It's basically that I want to show you when you're looking for a recipe, let's say bread, because tonight's all been about bread and butter. And incidentally, bread and butter pudding is a great recipe to try too. Also, this Tangjong milk bread is awesome. I find it needs to rise a lot longer than the recipe says, but yeah, it's really awesome. But look at all the different breads that come up when I just type in that one word. So if you love making bread, try them all. Just keep trying them all until you've found your favorite. There's a lot here that we love. That brunch bread's awesome too. Yeah, tonight really was just showing you the basics. But what I wanted to show you was the tip of organizing your recipes. So a lot of you know to find this that you can bookmark it, add it to a collection, which is basically a folder. You can add to your week, so you can choose the day you want to cook it and add to your shopping list. Now, what some people still don't know is that when I go to my week and come to my shopping list, when I press show ingredients, it's separated all the ingredients out into the aisles of your supermarket so that your dairy's together and your meat's together of all the recipes you want to cook that week. So it's really just making life easy. But this button here, the order ingredients button, this is awesome. So it only works with Woolworths. It detects all the ingredients you want for the week. It chooses a brand for you, as obviously it has to do. But if you don't like that brand, come here and press swap and you can choose the brand you do like, whether you want it to be cheaper or organic or whatever the situation is. Let's go cheaper, shall we? And then once you're ready, you just press add to cart. Now I've got a lot of ingredients in this because I've been playing around with it. And occasionally there'll be something that wasn't matched automatically, and that's okay. The system is, 99% perfect. So come read those so that when you go to your cart, you know that you need to add that in manually on the Woolworths website, which is totally fine. The other thing that's fairly new is that you can come to the My Recipes tab, press created recipes, and here's where you can add in your own family favorites so that they show up on Cookidoo on your screen of your Thermomix TM6. So these are some family favorite recipes that we've added in. And then last thing I want to show you, oh, actually another thing. Actually, this isn't, two more things, sorry, this is important. If you haven't looked at your filters yet, up the very top of Cookidoo, you can go to your profile and update your filters. Now, the reason you would do this is if it's on your default setting, it's only ticked Australia. So what a lot of us like to do is come here and untick Australia, just get rid of that and tick the languages that you speak, because that's going to open up so many more recipes. And the other thing you can do here, oh, this is what I need to do. The other thing you need to do is tick the accessories you do have and untick the accessories you don't have, because you don't want to be halfway through a recipe and it tells you to put in the blade cover peeler when you don't have it. So yeah, that's important. So we'll press save. Okay, we went in there. And the other thing I want to show you is that some recipes now have scaling. So this was a random one so that you can change the servings. So the normal serving size for this pizza dough is four pieces. And you can see it's got 400 grams of flour. If I want to cook for more people, because we are a family of 6, you can scale that recipe up and you can see now we're working with 600 grams of flour and all the other ingredients will have been scaled up as well. So that's another exciting thing that's still being rolled out is recipe scaling so that our recipes can, you're in control. So if you're a family of 2, you can put it down lower. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So that was just a super quick Cookidoo tutorial. And now I want to show you the cutter. It's over here, sorry. So basically, 2 secs. Hey, Jared, can you please get me a carrot? I wasn't prepared to actually make anything on it, but I might as well. So, so this is really cool. You've got a bowl. This is like, for those who haven't got a Thermomix yet, this is an optional extra that is brand new. It's just, he came into the kitchen at just the right time. you don't need to have this in order to make the most of your Thermomix. Like I've been Thermomixing for 13 years without this cutter, and the Thermomix is amazing just the way it is. For some of us, we're excited about the new accessories because it can give different aesthetics to your ingredients. So that's why some people are going mad for the cutter at the moment. So we put the bowl in. No, first you put the shaft piece in, driving shaft, I think it's called. And then you put your bowl in. And then it depends whether you want to slice or grate. So if you want to grate, you put it this side up because that's the gray piece. And if you want to, and there's actually, can you faintly see? Oh, it's not going to be good. It's written there. In real person, it's obvious. The other side is slice. So we've got grate and slice. Sorry, I couldn't remember which one. I already told you that. And the picture there kind of shows you. And for each side, there's thick or thin. So we've got 4 different results with our cutter. So I want to slice this carrot because I don't want grated carrot. So I'm going to put it on slice. And then you put your lid on. Put it in our Thermomix. Now we have on our modes. So these are all the different modes on the Thermomix. Your scales and dough and turbo. We've got clean mode, egg boiler, kettle, a warm up, thicken, rice cooker, fermentation, slow cook, sous vide, peeler. And then we've got our extra attachment modes. So we've got the grater, the slicer, and the blend. Oh, blend is for anything, sorry. So we are going to slice. And once you come in, you can choose thin or thick. Let's go thick. And I just need to quickly, I probably don't need to because it'll just slice it off for me. I'm going to leave the end on and let's see what happens. So we are going to put that up the top and we're going to guide it through with our guide. It's not pushing it, but we just guide it. So let's go to thick. And it only takes a few seconds and I'll show you the result. So I can, tomorrow when I send out the email with the recording and everything I said I'd already emailed with, I'll also attach a link to another video that's very professionally shows you about the cutter. But there we've got our sliced carrot in a few seconds. They're uniform sized pieces. So thick is 4 millimeters, thin is 1 millimeter, and that's for great for slice. But yeah, really easily sliced carrot. I hope you can see. And the end bit has been caught in the top, and that's okay. It should just pull out. I've had that happen before. Yeah, or sometimes you just need to give it a help. Just be careful with that, obviously. So that's interesting. That's kind of cool, actually. Yeah, so that's the cutter in a few seconds nutshell. The other thing to remember once you're finished using this is to take out that piece. I have heard of people forgetting about that being in there and getting it mixed up. So very important you take that out. And then your Thermomix is clean because no food has come in contact with any of this. So you're ready to, you meal prep, you like prep your ingredients in the cutter, take it off, and your Thermomix is ready to go for your recipe. So super easy to use. So that's the cutter. The other great thing for those who don't have a Thermomix yet, I've shown you all the modes so super quickly. So we actually have a TM6 and cutter demo happening very soon. It's on the 22nd of February, where I'll go into a lot more detail about the Thermomix itself and the cutter. Tonight really was just meant to be a quick class about bread and butter. That's why I'm being quick about the Thermomix. But in a nutshell, you know, I've shown you all the modes, and my actual favorite thing about the TM6 is if I go the other way. and I'm straight into Cookidoo. So I can come here and type what I want to make, or I can scroll down and see what's trending and what's new. So if I go down, I can see what's been cooking a lot this week. Lots of people eating pancakes. Yeah, so just really cool that you're straight into Cookidoo. And once you found the recipe you want to make, you just click it and you're in it. And you can scroll down to see your ingredients, your steps. There's a nutrition guide at the bottom, and some hints and tricks. But if you're ready to start, you just press start and go. And that's what you saw me do with the bread and the butter. So, oh, and sorry, if I show you the menu, here's where you can see all your recipes that you have organized, including your own created recipes. So my daughter just loves, and it's slow when I'm on Zoom, that, you know, a picture of herself is on the Thermomix screen, you know, so she can come and make the spaghetti bolognese and it's her favorite dinner. So she can come and cook it with guided cooking. So created recipes is awesome. Yeah, so that's the end of our class this evening, and I'll end the recording. And then if anyone has any questions to ask, please feel free to just come off mute and ask me. So I'll just end that recording now. Thanks everyone for joining.